I didn't really look too much to keep it 100 with you.
Mhm.
I was in a really deep hole. I just needed help,
Yeah, yeah,
and my finances were tough. Like we're in a really rough position as well, so I just needed to make sure, like, I needed to get someone that I can and like actually pay for. But I also didn't want to settle for someone that like didn't know what they were doing. So I looked for some of the top people here in the state. Um, but that also meant that my most of my insurance wouldn't cover it, and
yeah,
the medication wasn't covered under my insurance and stuff like that. So I didn't actually like look around too much. I just as a Latino male, for me to just even find somebody was an amazing like it was
yeah.
just I yo you did it, wow, that was awesome. Because I
Mhm.
didn't have anyone around me, I didn't know anyone in my family who ever especially males in my family who search for services. So I didn't even know who to look for. I literally felt like I was by myself,
Yeah,
and I found somebody. I was like, okay, they're knowledgeable, whatever. I went with them, and eventually, like, I realized that that wasn't the person for me. And luckily, I had the presence of mind to move away from that person because
mhm.
that wasn't the person for me. uh, but like most people don't understand that you can look around. And at the time, like even though I did know that I could look around, I was so confident in this doctor, and I was so basically blinded by the degrees and like the high rise office and all that stuff. Like I was like, oh, like yeah, they know what they're talking about and everything
Mhm.
like that. But um, again, to be vulnerable and keep it 100, like I was given medication without even actually trying to solve the problem of the root. Like they were kind of just like it was like a coating on top of my problems.
Yeah,
I felt like I couldn't feel my feelings. I honestly felt like a robot. I felt like I was living on autopilot. But I listened. I followed the prescription because that's another thing that I know that a lot of Latino community doesn't do. They don't follow prescriptions. So I'm
mhm.
like, okay, no, I'm gonna do I'm gonna do what he's telling
Imma do
me.
what they're telling me to do.
Yeah, because otherwise, like I wanted to not just say like, oh, like I changed my mind. Like I want, like I listened to exactly what he told me to do. Um, I honestly felt like a little bit better, but I still didn't really. I wasn't um, anywhere close to where I wanted to be.
Sure.
So I went back and I let him know, and I was like, hey, like I did what you told me. Like, what do you suggest? And he suggested I take more meds. And it was just at that time I realized that that's not what I wanted. Like I walked out
Mhm.
of there with a prescription and immediately started looking for other options, and especially more holistic options and other ways that I can actually take care of my body and my mental health
Yes.
without having to add um, a bunch of chemicals that, like, after the research that I've done, like it's disrupting my actual brain.
Yeah.
So I honestly I that was around the same time that I partnered with a superfood company, and I was able to really get my nutrition in check and get my gut health specifically in check. Like I just nothing that's nothing that I ever done before. I
Mhm.
never actually was intentional about caring for my gut health. Um, then I realized like 2 weeks into my nutrition program, I felt happy again. I felt all my feelings again, and I felt energized. I wasn't sleeping all day. I like everything was just coming together,
Yeah.
and I started realizing like, wow, so like, what if I would have gotten my habits in check, or even because I also was reading books, so I gained more coping skills um, that I could have been doing a lot better. So again, this is not me saying that like, hey, if you're giving prescription meds or like meds are bad, medication is bad, or
Right,
anything
right.
like that, don't take it. That's not what I'm saying. But in my experience, that's not what I needed at the time. Um,
Sure.
I needed to get my habits in check, and I needed to gain some knowledge on more coping skills.
Yeah.
And once I had that, I haven't honestly, like, it's been over a year now. I haven't needed any depression meds. I haven't needed anything along those lines. I am currently looking for a psychotherapist, but I want to make sure that there's someone that's focused on fixing the issue. I don't think I have an issue now, but like making sure that if they do find something, they're going for the root of the issue, not just trying to like paint over it basically and cover it
Right.
up.
No, absolutely, man. And again, I appreciate you sharing that. It's
Yep.
we don't want to just address the symptoms.
Mm,
Sometimes they're important, right?
yeah.
Sometimes they help us direct and point to maybe something else that might be going on. For those of you that have never been in therapy,
Mhm.
you might only know some of the experiences that you're having, like what Carlos was sharing. You might see, I am sleeping a lot, or I am feeling nervous a lot. Maybe you don't even know the word anxious. You're just like, I'm just nervous a lot, or I worry a lot, or I'm scared a lot. So you might not know the emotional language that we may use. So the fact that, you acknowledge that is great. And to your point about the medication usage, I would say as a therapist, I'm very much in favor of utilizing it as a tool,
Mhm.
not as the end all be all. And I'm gonna try to make that point again,
Yes.
because again, this is not against people with medication.
Mhm.
If you utilize medication, it's not a problem and it's not a bad thing.
Mhm.
However, you got to understand you have to use that in conjunction with therapy. So medication is a tool, and then we add therapy with that to address the root cause, which is exactly what Carlos was just speaking on. We put those together, we can actually see real progress. We can see real change. But it takes time to work through that. For some people, I will tell you, I believe we touched on this in our initial call. Some people, depending on what they present with, what their issues may be, they might not be very emotionally stable. They might be all over the place, very erratic behavior, we would say. I can't engage in therapy with you when you're all over doing this. I can't, because you're not mentally stable and grounded enough to actually receive what we're going
Mhm.
to share. And you're not going to be able to be very vulnerable, probably, in the way that we need to, in a productive way. You might, what we would say, emotionally vomit all over me and just like let it all out, but that's
Mhm.
not constructive. We got to do this step by step in a very delicate way. So sometimes the medication is a method or tool to get us to stability, and then we can start engaging in therapy to start unraveling and discovering why maybe you're anxious or depressed or fearful, or whatever those thoughts may be. So that's a way that it could work. And to further emphasize that point, unless you have a truly debilitating issue, right? Something that you will never be able to fully function the way that you want. Many people don't need to be medicated permanently. You might need it for a period of time to help you, again, get stability, do your work, so that you can address those core issues that caused you to reach out to the psychiatrist to get medicated in the first place. And then you can slowly taper down over time. And if you don't know those things, those are definitely things to share with your provider to get that understanding. For most people, they don't have severe and persistent mental illness. We go through periods of time, like adjustments, if you will.
Seasons.
Yeah, seasons where you are dealing with something, but it's not forever.
Mhm.
Everybody gets depressed at times. Everybody will get anxious at times, but it's usually not a permanent thing. It's in response to something. I lost somebody that I really cared about. That's normal to feel depressed. That's normal to maybe be anxious. Things like that. So we want to definitely differentiate. So we're not saying it's everybody should be medicated for everything and forever, and we're also not saying that medication's evil. It's a tool, and it serves a purpose and a function. But to Carlos's point, and I think it's very important that we acknowledge that, if you only have a provider that only seems to wants to lean towards medication and
Mhm.
doesn't ask other important questions, which I'm definitely going to be talking about with you. What do you eat? How well do you sleep? Do you do any physical activity? Do you have social support?
Never.
Do you have people around you that you care about, that you can open up to, that you talk to about the things that you got going on? If all those things are in disarray, medication can't fix that.
Mm-mm.
So it's important to understand that.